Right, welcome. I now move to reconvene the full council meeting that was adjourned yesterday at 9:30 or 8:15 p.m. Can somebody second this? Seconded by Councillor Sophie Enfield. All those in favor say aye. Karen. Yeah. First of all, any apologies? I know Jackie lateness. Okay. Any conflict of interest?
Yes, so I have a conflict of interest to declare today around the Ngā Manu presentation. I'm doing some work for them at the moment.
Noted. No, you don't. Right. I'd like to say yes, but no.
So I'll leave the room during their presentation.
Thank you. The first submitter this morning is Shelley Warwick, and she's on Zoom.
Am I good to go, Guru?
Yep, you're ready to go.
Okay. I've got two submissions, and I'm not really sure. I think this is a driver licensing one. I'd also did an individual one. I'm not even sure how long I've got to talk, but I put in a submission for a learner licensing initiative in Otaki. I've been working with the schools on this since early 2020, and was trying to work through NZTA and also KCDC staff with Bruce Johnson and Glenn O'Connor, and just recently put a submission into NZTA to fund a learner licensing initiative here in Otaki, which was denied. And so Glenn suggested I put this into the annual plan, long-term plan. So what we're trying to set up, and I'm working with Moko Morris from Te Puna Oranga o Otaki, who are running a rangatahi program here in Otaki, and want to come on board with this. And what we're proposing to do, and why we're proposing to do it, is that we have a lot of kids here in Otaki who, for many reasons, cost, public transport, no real drive to get their licence, are just not getting their learner's licence. And then when they're leaving school, they are ending up without any licence. And so we thought if we could run a program from Otaki to take kids from their schools at 16 to live-in, because we can work through live-in, put them through the iHow learner licensing program, and just kind of make it really difficult for them not to get their license. And then Te Puna Oranga want to pick up the restricted license, and they're going to apply for some funding to get a modified car and run a restricted licensing program for our kids here in Otaki. So initially this would be a program for the three kura in Otaki College, Te Rito and Whakatūpiranga. And the possibility is that it could be expanded. This is a real problem all over the country. And so within this program, we'd be looking to, this licensing as a program is a problem throughout the whole of the country. And so we would be looking to seek funding beyond this to keep it going, not from council, but we actually need to have something to start with. And then when we are successful, we can go to other funders and seek funding to make this a program that rolls out year after year. I know I've got teenage kids, a lot of kids that don't get their licence, and then they leave school, need a job, and they drive without their licence. It's also a problem, Ministry of Social Development, ACC, all of NZTA, they all realise that there's a problem with kids not getting their licence. But there's no real programs to tackle this. Well, there is. We want one in Otaki. NZTA have been completely kind of unhelpful in this space, and your staff have tried to be helpful. So, yeah, we're just applying for funding. I don't know where it would come from. I think Glenn O'Connor has some NZTA money for driver mentoring programs, and to hope that we could roll out something that was successful and work with Te Puna Oranga o Ōtaki to make this program something a bit more special and long lasting. So yeah, that's my driver licensing submission.
So do you need to, what's your second topic? Because you'll be running out of time for council.
No. Well, I did an individual submission too, and so that you can it's just my thoughts on what is in the long-term plan. So I'll stick with the licensing. That's not a biggie. With my other submission, the one thing I really am opposed to, and I think you're hearing from Ōtaki principals later on today, is the new gymnasium facility in Paraparaumu College. And I don't really see, when you're going to develop Otaroa Park, how you would want to develop two lots of facilities when our rates are already going up quite significantly. So that's the main one on my other submission. But my main submission is for the driver licensing program. I actually didn't really think this was a council problem, and it's not. But at the end of last year, I think Steph Putt had 2 jobs offered to her for kids at Ōtaki College through council. So council's trying to support schools to get kids into jobs, and she couldn't place any of the kids who needed a job because none of them had a restricted license. So this is actually a really big problem for us here, and there's a few of us just wanting to make it really difficult for kids not to get their license. The live-in police would like to be part of any program that we run, so we do have a bit of support. We just got to have the money to get it going, really.
Okay, Shelley, I think
that's it.
Councillors with questions. Councillor McCann.
Thanks, Shelley. I'm really glad that you brought this to our attention, because I think it's a catch-22 for those young students, and it's not fair. Have you brought this to the attention of our MP?
Of who, sorry?
Our MP, Teresa?
No, I haven't, sorry. But basically, I was working towards NZTA funding this until about 2 weeks ago, and had worked with Steve James and Glenn O'Connor, had meeting with them maybe a month ago, and Steve James, who is the safety coordinator for NZTA in the Wellington region, thought that he might be able to get funding for it, and then he couldn't. So NZTA...
I recommend making contact with Teresa, and Councillor Hanford is also in the room, so I'll email her asking that might take place, because I think you're right, it is a central government issue, not that we can't play a role. Have you also put an OIA into police to see how many unlicensed people have been pinged in the Ōtaki electorate, and then what the age bracket of those people are?
No, I haven't. But police know that this is a problem. I didn't make contact with the live-in police. One of their constables made contact with me because he's assigned to try and work out problems for Ōtaki kids and get them into licensing. So this is a problem, and we're kind of thinking we could initiate something that might actually be a pilot for other places, because we were going to get licensing in schools, but that's never happened. And for me, I just think it's sad if kids start that kind of, not having a license, getting a fine, not paying their fine, getting another fine, not ending, it just is a big kind of...
Wholeheartedly, there are lots of courses around New Zealand that offer licenses to ensure that students don't end up being disadvantaged. Thank you very much.
Councillor Holbrook.
Hi, Shirley. Thanks for this initiative. It's really important. Have you talked to Work Ready Kāpiti about this? Because I know that driver licensing is one of the things that they try to progress.
Yep. So Te Puna Oranga in contact with Work Ready Kāpiti through their rangatahi program. So they got funding only a few months ago to run a rangatahi Work Ready program. So I have been in touch. The thing is that what we're trying to offer is something for all of the kids in Ōtaki, so it's really difficult. So almost a pilot. So Work Ready Kāpiti works with a few kids. It's not a kind of an umbrella program that captures all of the kids. And there is lots of people, I mean, even our own schools have had their own programs to try and take these kids to the iHow training program in Levin, and they have, and they do, because they want them, but it's at their own cost. So we're trying to create a program that will kind of help the schools out and get our kids ready for work, all of them, not just a few.
Councillor Coates.
Morning, Shelley.
Hi, James.
Look, I think it's a really good initiative, and I'd been watching it just filter through the Road Safety Advisory Group, and it looked like it had support and traction. So I'm disappointed to hear that they haven't. Was there a reason given from NZTA? And I think in light of the fact that they've got the Road to Zero campaign around focusing on zero deaths and fatalities, I'd be really interested to know what the reason was for declining it.
I didn't get a reason from Glenn. Glenn rang me because I put my submission into Steve James after a meeting about a month ago where he was confident that he could get some money. And I had a call from Glenn and he said, look, I'm really disappointed for you and this is not going to fly. They won't fund it. Steve has said that he's tried and they won't. I've found dealing above Steve James too, because I've written to NZTA and been put on to other managers, and they just really are very unhelpful and not very interested, to be honest. And so that's why we're kind of thinking, well, if we can initiate this program and get it going and be successful, we kind of say to them, well, come on, you need to actually start funding this kind of thing, because this is what can work. Hopefully. Yeah, we intend to make it work.
Thanks, Shelley. I mean, we can talk later, but it sounds like there's support around the table to help seek the funding. I guess the question is whether the funding should come from council, and I understand why you're asking for it to get it going. We'll talk. Well,
the plan is that we get it going, but we have to have a year forward to make it successful, and within months of hopefully being successful, we can go to other funders and say, hey, we need money because we want to put kids through their restricted licence. Councillor
Pravanov has got another question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Shelley, for speaking to this today. It's a really great initiative. But to me, it's in two parts. One is actually learning to drive. The other one is to getting a licence. And when I started reading it, initially I thought it was about getting the licence, but it's about learning as well. And I suppose having children who've gone through this before, it's about parental involvement, and I haven't seen anything about them. Plus also too, I know that young people, they need to want to do this. You can't actually force them to learn to drive. And I'm just wondering whether, maybe a little bit more time and tying up some of these agencies, particularly with the AA as well, that's needed before all this can come together and actually work. So I suppose the key thing is about whether this is I can see that you're wanting people to train these children to drive, but I think really that's got to come from themselves and from their families.
Yeah, unfortunately that's part of the problem, is that sometimes these kids are not getting support to go and get their licence or to learn to drive. And it's kind of a chicken and an egg thing, what comes first. So Te Puna Oranga, Moko is looking at funding for getting a modified car that will be owned by the community. And she's talked to funders who are keen, and within that, getting the money to pay for driver instructors, so that every kid who does the program would then go on. So the program would start with a learner's license and then go on to restricted driving lessons. And there is a will from the schools, the kids. I think once kids know that, maybe it's free, or it could be free or part funded, and that it's just there and easy, there's probably going to be more of a buy. And I think kids are pretty, that I've seen so many kids who are not getting their license, and it's very frustrating, and there's lots of reasons for it.
Councillor Hanford's got another question.
So really quickly, Shelley, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and for the initiative that you've taken to actually put together a almost proposal for it. I'm just wondering what involvement or what conversations you've had with young people, the Youth Council, Te Ana Mata, the youth group up in Otaki, just various young people and kind of co-designing what this could look like.
Well, Sophie, I haven't, sorry. So that's something, yes, I should be doing.
Kia ora. Thanks for acknowledging that, Shelley.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shelley, for your submission. I think you've heard a good response from the councillors.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time. Have you got him on? Tēnā koe, Fraser. You there?
Yep, I'm here. Kia ora, everyone.
Ready to go?
All right.
Yep, you're good to go.
Sweet. So I'm Fraser. I'm currently studying in my second year of civil engineering down at the University of Canterbury. That's where I'm zooming in from. I'm from Kāpiti. I studied at Kapanui School and then Paraparaumu College as well. So yeah, firstly I'd like to talk about the development of the Waikanai Park. And I believe there's lots of potential here to reach a wide range demographic of people in Waikanai. And particularly I'm going to talk about the basketball court. So yeah, the basketball court opens up more opportunity for people to get out and play sport, especially in that area where I'd say there's the rugby fields there, but the next basketball court is maybe Kapanui School or even Waikanai School. So it's very centralised in that Waikanai area. And there's lots of potential there, and I've been up in Palmerston North and checked out some of their courts that have been popping up. They've done lots of development up there with their parks, and they have systems called airtime hoops, which are roughly $5,000 each to install. So it's only a fraction of the budget that you guys are proposing. And these are high quality hoops that will demand respect from those who play on them. So yeah, and I played basketball my whole childhood, and I've even travelled to Las Vegas to play for the New Zealand Basketball Academy. So basketball has had a major impact on my life, and I know that putting a court in this area will open up opportunity for lots of other young people like myself to get out there and play sport, and it's life-changing. Lighting, also a big key, I think, in the area, and it will just add extra security and also safety around that park area. Also, a lot of people my age like to head down, maybe after the sun goes down late at night, just to shoot some hoops when it's a bit quieter. Yeah. Right, so moving on to the indoor sports centre. This also has lots and lots of potential. I'd like to see something how the ASB Arena in Wellington works, or even the one in Ngāpurapura in Otaki, where it's $2 for casual entry, multi-court use, physio, and it's ran as a company, not a gym where someone has a key and you go unlock it. So someone will be managing the centre outside of school hours, maybe if there's not school staff around, and they'll let people in and do some maintenance and stuff like that. And the main thing is that it needs to be accessible to everyone. Currently, from my experience, training for basketball, it's pretty hard to get into the Paraparaumu community gym. You need someone with a key, you need an adult, and yeah, it's just tough to do that. So, but having it open will allow for people to come in and just have a casual game. And yeah, a 2-court system in the centre will attract netballers, basketballers, and other indoor sports codes to host tournaments here in Kāpiti, so bringing more revenue into the Kāpiti area. Paraparaumu College is also very central relative to the majority of the population on the coast. So having it in this area will allow for minimum compromise for most people in regards to travel time. So that means that the most amount of people are going to get there, it's going to get good use, and it's going to generate more income. My experience training for my Las Vegas tour as well is that one of the key things is to get into a gym and have some good quality court time where you're not distracted by the wind, the rain, the weather. You can just get in there for an hour or two and just have some good training. So when I was training, I'd travel up to Ngā Putapura, and that worked perfectly where I could just call up, see if there's a court free, and then just turn up, pay $2 and get a good hour and a half of training. So yeah, it's important for future athletes that are looking to go down the pathway that I did, that this is open and an opportunity that's easily accessible to them. And then the design life needs to be roughly around 50 years too, much like the current gym. It needs to be here for another 50 years and to cater for Kāpiti's growth in the future. So yeah, that's all I really have to add. So thank you.
Thank you. We got questions of Councillor Holbrook.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation today, Fraser, and for making the time out of your busy studying schedule. My son did civil engineering too, and he's now working for Higgins. So when you say that you were able to go to Ngā Putapura and pay $2 and get into the court, we actually had a submission from the Ōtaki principals yesterday saying that we don't need something in Paraparaumu because we've got Ngā Putapura in Ōtaki and the various facilities that we've already got in Kāpiti. What would you have to say in response to that?
I think it's all to do with demand. Like, Ngā Putapura is brilliant, but Paraparaumu College is quite centralised, where it would be 5 minutes from Raumati, 5 minutes from Paraparaumu, 5 minutes from Waikanai. So you've got the majority of the population around it, and it's just to travel there, it's going to encourage the most amount of people to head there, I believe. And then, like the gym, the Paraparaumu College gym, I think it is quite outdated currently. So a new nationally recognised sports facility such as Ngā Putapura would be amazing to have in that area.
Yeah, thanks. That certainly provides some balance to the discussion around this. Thanks a lot for your time today.
Councillor Hanford.
Kia ora, Fraser. I just have a question relating to something in your submission around having access to a facility that encourages well-being would be really enjoyable for the youth of Kāpiti, but also our entire population. Could you just expand a little bit more on why you think that well-being aspect is really important, especially for our young people? Well,
to put it personally, for my experience, coming back home from Christchurch and catching up with old mates, it's all too easy just to go to a bar and socialise, where sometimes you'd much rather just go play a good game of basketball in a good facility, or even such as the outdoor court or this indoor sports centre, and just have a good day with your mates, as opposed to going out drinking, where, you know, it gets old, and it's much better for your health, obviously, to play some basketball, and it's much more sociable, I think, too.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Fraser. It's really great to see a young person speaking to us today. I think you're the youngest person by far outside the Youth Council. It's really important to be engaged with our young community. So in terms of the sports facility that is proposed in Paraparaumu, so you've talked about where you are in your stage of life. In having such a facility there, how would it actually, can you see it be utilised by much younger people, a much broader part of this community?
Well, I think having someone in the facility that's overseeing takes away like any need for having an adult with you who has access, who has a gym, and obviously a time slot open. So anyone at any age is going to be able to call up and use this facility. So kids, primary school kids, college kids that are just keen to get out and play some sport can just turn up on their bike and play.
Thank you. So now just touching on the Waikanai Park, I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but the plan is to make that into a destination park, and part of that started, well, actually yesterday there was a rollout of a pump track, and within about 3 hours on the KCDC Facebook page there were 220 likes and 157 comments, and they were all very, very positive. And so that is probably looking at a smaller demographic. So by actually having it's a basketball court, but a multi-surface court there, how much of an impact do you think that would have on Waikanai?
I think mostly like not only just the kids, but also maybe young adults as well, and then parents as well. It's going to have an impact on, especially in that Waikanai town area around Kāpiti School, around Mahara Place, and that area is also growing. So having an awesome basketball court is going to have a massive effect, and it's just going to open up more opportunity for young people any age really, just to get out there and get some exercise and get fit.
So I have one more question. How important do you think it is for young people or people who are going to be using such facilities to be involved in the planning of it from the very outset?
I think that's vital. You have to have people that are going to use it for the next few years to be involved in the planning. I know I'd be happy to be involved in the planning. If anyone needs some consultation advice, I'd love to be there for that and be organised, because I know when I get home, that will be one of the first things I'm thinking about, is to head down to that court and shoot some hoops.
Thank you, Fraser.
Kathy.
Kia ora, Fraser. Thank you very much. Some of my thunder's been stolen, but my question's very simple. Would you support funding to be allocated in the long-term plan for a feasibility study, so that someone can go out and talk to the young people and talk to the sporting codes to find out exactly what the needs are right across Kāpiti?
Definitely, I think so. And I doubt that you would even need much funding for it, because there's lots of passion there that the schools will be probably happily set aside some time to get their students involved to plan this and propose their ideas. I remember in primary school, there were ideas about the Memorial Hall in Waikanai, and I was happily put my hand up to give some information on that. And I know that other young people would too, especially young netballers and basketballers, with basketball growing as a sport. They'll be very passionate about this idea and this proposal. And yeah, I'd see it as a great opportunity to have their say.
Great, thank you, Fraser. Have a good day.
Councillor Coates.
Morning, Fraser. Look, it's great to see you involved as a younger person in our long-term plan process, as other councillors have said, because it's not common and it's refreshing. Councillor Hobber at the start raised a question around the principles from Otaki challenging, I guess, the view around Ngā Purapura versus Paraparaumu College. However, the other aspect of the submission was Council's plan for Otoroa Park and an all-purpose facility there. So what's your views around still developing a indoor sports centre, but on a site like that, which is equally central and close to the likes of Waikanai as well? I'm not too sure if you're aware of Otoroa Park.
Yeah, that's the one near Waikanai River, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah. No, I agree. That is also very central. And yeah, like if it were not to be on Paraparaumu College soil, then I think Paraparaumu College still has two good courts there that they can use for their school stuff. And if Otoroa Park were to cater for it more, I know that it's a great spot there and it's got plenty of parking, then that would also be a good idea because it is very centralised too, and it's pretty good land there too.
Thanks, Fraser.
Thank you, Fraser. No other questions. Thank you for taking the time, and good luck.
Thank you. Cheers, everybody. See ya.
There, and everyone acknowledges that. And as he pointed out, $500,000 will cover his
John,
supports. Thank you.
are you ready to go?
I've already talked to him about this. Isn't about
Ahead of time. Thank you for coming up early. Harmai. Right, we're having John Barrett from Manaki in Kāpiti. Kia ora, John. Microphone button.
That's it. We all right? Okay, thanks very much. Morning, everybody. Thanks for taking me early. It's great. Our submission on behalf of Manaaki Kāpiti is, you have a copy of, I'm sure. COVID-19's changed almost everything in that, but not quite everything. The statistics, the tourism figures, the historical figures are all absolutely relevant up until March 2020. And in our opinion, those stats still need to be part of the thinking. The statistics for the year 20 March 2020 to end of March 2021 are something different. But in terms of visitor activity on the Kāpiti coast, I don't think they are much different, to be honest. And I think I would like Council to think in terms of our submission still being as relevant as it was, with the proviso that the year up to March 2020, March 2021 is the most unusual year we'll ever have, most likely. None of the rationale or the importance we placed on various aspects of our submission have changed a great deal. Some of the changes that need to be talked about, I guess, are things like the incorporation of the recent destination management plan, which will play an important part in our sector's development. I'm here on behalf of Manaaki Kāpiti, which has been a tool for our sector as it's outlined there. The future of Manaaki Kāpiti may not be long term, but there will be an organisation or a sector body advocating on behalf of the sector, hopefully as long as we're in the Kāpiti district. Currently, Manaaki Kāpiti sits with Kāpiti Chamber of Commerce. You're probably aware of that, and still the membership is the same, and the same functions are carried out by that organisation. We are a group representative of tourism and hospitality and retail, and all of those points we've made are still absolutely relevant in the period going forward post-COVID, the post-COVID era. We believe there is even more of a future for the tourism sector going forward, and we're in that space simply because of what's happened in this COVID year, this unusual COVID year. Many of the tourism businesses have enjoyed very good results through the COVID period with domestic tourism. And we anticipate that will continue through 2021, 2022. And then hopefully by the end of 2022, we should be then looking at more international visitation coming back to Aotearoa and inevitably to the Kāpiti district. I don't have much more to say to our report apart from what I've said now, that we still are absolutely enthusiastic and optimistic about the future of our district in terms of tourism activity. We know we're a small sector. We think that enables us to plan better and be more effective in what we do. We still require more assistance to maintain our presence and our impact. As I said, our membership is small and it's probably likely to stay small for some time, but it doesn't mean we can't be effective. We need to have an effective body to advocate to local, regional and central government on issues that affect our sector.
You ready for questions? Questions? Councillor Halliday.
Good morning, John, and thank you for coming in and representing Manaaki. Look, we've just recently had the destination plan work being done, and I know we've had destination plans in the past. Are you happy with the direction that's heading? Is there things that you'd like to see implemented to as we move forward in that space?
No, I think the destination management plan that's been presented covers the priorities that the sector would want to see covered. The 6 strategic priorities are pretty much bang on, we think, and we think the process was pretty good getting to those 6 priorities through the various hui and consultations that took place. So we're happy with that plan.
So I'm aware that we, through our regional rates, pay a substantial amount, well, what we consider as a substantial amount, into Wellington NZ with regards to that. So are you been happy with the way or the support that's coming back via Wellington NZ with regards to the promotion of Kāpiti or such like along that sort of line?
Yes and no. On the yes side, the yes side is because personally, as our own business, we have a different relationship with Wellington NZ. We're a contributing member as well. But I would say that overall, Kāpiti doesn't do well out of the relationship with Wellington NZ. In terms of the return on investment, I don't think it's good. Could be a lot better. I'm not sure how you go about that. Maybe you stamp your feet a bit more or do something, but I don't think it's not good enough. And it could be and should be better. They have all the resources, they have all the expertise, they have all the contacts and relationships to do a good job on our behalf. I'm just not sure what we need to do to make them work better for us.
Let's not have a conversation. If you've got any further questions, I want to move on to Councillor Coates. Councillor Coates.
Morena, John. I had a similar question around Wellington NZ, so I'll pass on that one and just move to ED in general. Through some of the submissions that we have received in understanding the level of rates increases that have been proposed, there is a view there that council doesn't have a role in economic development. And so my first question is, what's your concern if council didn't play its part in what it does in the economic development area and the work that the staff do and so forth in coordinating and that? Do you see that would be at the detriment to the local sector, or that it would just continue on business as usual and make no difference?
I think it would make a huge difference if council didn't not just continue its involvement in economic development, but increased and improved its participation and role in economic development. I mean, the Kāpiti district has to be a place that's welcoming for entrepreneurship, has to welcome people who are prepared to take a risk and contribute to the economic growth of the district. Council's role, in my view, is to enable that to happen as best it can. Be proactive, be active, be proactive, and be encouraging. That obviously that probably involves spending some money, but it's if there's not that encouragement and that support for economic development in the district, the risk is we'll turn into a village of not very much going on.
Thank you, John. The second question is around the development of the Kotahitanga board. And I know, as an example of that, the chair has met with the chief executive from Wellington NZ and shake the tree a little bit. But has Manaaki had involvement with the Kotahitanga board? And I think acknowledging one of your members might sit on that board, I think. So I'm just interested in how that...
The answer is no.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Holbrook.
Yeah, kia ora, John. Thanks for coming along today, and thanks for all the work that your various organisations that you're involved in do. Can you comment a little bit about the the possible impact of the completion of the expressway projects and how that might affect the marketing of Kāpiti, focused in on regional tourism and day trips?
Well, look, I think inevitably it's going to, just make access to Kāpiti district easier. My fear is we haven't got sufficient infrastructure is not the right word, but as it says in the strategic priorities, to develop more tourism product in the district. We've got the accesses here, and I don't think we want the access just to enable commuters to go backward and forward to Wellington. We want to be able to bring people to the district to enjoy themselves. Come to something that's uplifting, enjoyable in terms of in a tourism context. We need more product in the district. We have the access. The access will just get better and better and easier. We just need more product development in the district, and economic development, council's involvement should be part of that.
Tanika is. One last quick question. Who hasn't asked?
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Quick. Two quick questions. Quick.
Look, I just wanted to check, John, in relation to your foot stomping that you referred to that we perhaps need to do down at Wellington NZ, do you think the mechanism we've put in place with regards to the Independent Economic Development Board is the right process for that?
Well, it depends how effective they can be. It's a process. I mean, it's probably as good a process as any, but it has to be effective.
Councillor Khan.
Kia ora. Thank you for coming. One of the things that's been identified in the past is the lack of accommodation and high-class accommodation. Have you had any views around what the Templeton Group have had to say about the potential for the airport land to deliver something like that?
Do I have a view, did you say? To be honest, I'm not sure what they've said. But if they're talking about a high-quality accommodation facility, that would be wonderful, and I'd be supportive of any investor who was prepared to do that. But it's a risky business, I think. But you know, those investors would have to make their decisions based on their best knowledge and their wisdom. But if that's what the talk is of a significant hotel or accommodation facility, that would definitely make a positive difference to the district in terms of tourism, attracting conference, business, things like that. Definitely would make a significant difference, in my opinion.
And to be clear, I'm not saying they're saying that. I'm just saying it's one of the
Well,
potentials.
if they weren't and somebody else was, the answer would be the same. It would be a pretty positive answer.
Thank you, John, for your submission today and coming in and presenting it yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Marlon Elkington, are you ready?
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Marlon. You're ready to go.
Yes, I'm still trying to get my support person to join in, but the Zoom is just not working from your side. But if I can find her, I'll bring her in a different way. But you've read the submission.
Excuse me, Marlon, who's your support person?
Boshe McGregor.
Sweet. Yeah, if she wants to come in, that's fine. We just didn't have her down, so I couldn't let her in. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So you've seen this submission, and we just Boshe McGregor is part of the DHB Tangata Whaikaha Advisory Group for 3 DHB, and she's also an iwi representative. And we just don't want to be, disability do not want to be left out for the next 20 years. We've just given a submission to the Greater Wellington 10 year, and now we want to voice our concerns to this one. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, it does. Go on.
So yeah, we don't get paid to write all these submissions. It's very difficult to have an input when there's so many different councils that need an input from a disability point of view, and why aren't they working collectively? You there, Boshe? I hope you guys can hear Boshe. Say hello, Boshe. Can you guys hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, we've just given a submission to the Greater Wellington 10-year, and this one is a 20-year plan, and we do not want disability left out for another 20 years. And to hear it coming from a Māori person with a disability just makes it so much easier. I just can't get her on Zoom, so hopefully you can hear the comments. Where you go, Boshe?
So some of the issues that have come up, especially for likes of myself, who is a full-time wheelchair user, is going around the streets and trying to cross roads. It's really difficult because the gutters are not safe at all. Not only wheelchair users, mothers with their hands. And yeah, that's one of the major issues that I find as a wheelchair user, just really unsafe.
So we're hoping you can hear the voice of disability personally, and please include us in the 20-year plan that you're designing.
Right,
any questions?
Councillor Coates.
Morena, Marlon, thank you for taking the opportunity to participate and also to, make further efforts to bring others into that conversation. It's helpful. We'd had a previous submission requesting a disability strategy for council to consider and adopt. Do you think that would go towards addressing your concerns around the council viewing the way we do business through a disability lens?
How does that sound to you, Boshe? A disability strategy.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if this is too deep, but where would you get your knowledge for disabled people's needs from?
Mayor Guru here. Look, we will have we have already have a disability support group, advisory group. So I would make sure that you are connected to them to enable you to participate in the strategy.
Thank you. We will offer.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, we will offer contact details.
Very good. Now we've got a question from Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Marlon, for zooming in today. So I have a question in relation, whether you have any involvement in the disability group and whether there's any discussion that goes to developers or actually also to council staff between minimum standards and best practice, because I certainly am aware of the issues of wheelchair users in terms of using gutters. So that best practice versus minimum standards, which obviously there's a difference in price.
Good question. Thank you. Within the CCDHB, there's a disability team, and we're looking at offering as much education information as possible. So to know that you're wanting that information is a great start, and I'll send you contact details of the disability team.
Thank you.
There are no other questions Let me thank you both for participating in this, and we'll make sure that you are connected to the Disability Advisory Group so that you can be part and parcel of the disability strategy that will be developed.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you.
Bye.
Tony, you willing to come up early?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tony Quayle from the Kāpiti District's Aero Club.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for having me here today. Our airport is a valuable community asset and emergency facility, and it must be retained. Aviation is if not one of the most energy efficient means of medium to long distance passenger transport. That is unquestionable. The carbon footprint for flying from Auckland to Auckland from Paraparaumu is lower than driving to Wellington or Palmerston North to fly to Auckland. And we are a very long way off reaching a point where public transport to those larger airports would make it attractive enough to stop people driving their cars there. Hence, transport to Auckland, potentially to Christchurch from Kāpiti, remains a carbon efficient way of getting there. There is also a high chance that airlines will be operating electric aircraft on regional routes before public transport becomes as efficient as it would need to be to encourage people to take public transport to those larger regional airports. A high chance of that, a very high chance that electric aircraft will be here first. The Kāpiti Aero Club is advocating for a mixed-use model that frees up surplus land for development while retaining the core as an airport and open space. And we are highly supportive of mana whenua aspirations to reconnect and benefit from the land. Our position on the long-term plan issues, we support the CCO. It's a proven model that's working elsewhere in the country for councils having an interest in commercial businesses. And we also support council, quote, exploring ways to have a role in the airport, noting that exploring does not necessarily lead to the council actually having a role. It is exploring having a role. That's what's stated in the long-term plan. Given the overwhelming public support for the airport demonstrated in multiple surveys, it would be out of order for council not to explore this issue. The airport has been central to this community as a transport hub and open space for more than 80 years. Maybe you can't walk across it, but you can walk around it and enjoy the open space away from the housing, the more intensive housing of the suburban streets. In closing, you, Mayor and councillors, will be remembered for how you influenced the outcome of this issue. You could embrace the owner's development plan as a short-term but windfall solution to the housing shortage, noting that you have already identified other land that can be developed for housing in the region, in the district. Or you could take a long-term view by supporting a mixed-use model that retains the airport core for economic, societal and resilience benefits that it will continue to deliver. Thank you for listening. Ngā mihi.
Councillor Coots.
Good morning, Tony. Thanks for coming in and speaking to your submission. You made a pretty bold statement there at the start, which I'm not suggesting is incorrect, but I'm just wondering if you have some evidence to back it up around the emissions from a flight from Paraparaumu to Auckland being less than emissions, I'm assuming, from all those travellers travelling by car or other forms of transport to either Palmerston, North or Wellington airports and then flying.
So a local scientist has done some calculations on that. I don't have the full detail, but I'm sure it could be provided.
It would be helpful if it is provided, because it does help provide a different
I will follow up on that.
Approach to that discussion. The other aspect you referred to is the future of electric planes, and although we've had a previous submitter talk about that, I guess the challenge for the community and elected members is the public transport options are more visible and exist in plans like long-term plans and so forth. There's very little evidence to support publicly what you're saying around the future. So I just wondered whether there is other information out there that sort of, again, I'm not sceptical of it, but I'm just wondering how much evidence is there that that is a reality in the short term?
Okay, so for a start, we know that Sounds Air has made a commitment, effectively placed an order for a electric version of the Cessna Caravan that it operates now out of Kāpiti to the Marlborough area, Marlborough-Nelson area. If you follow aviation journals, you'll see that electric aircraft are rapidly emerging. As a club, we will be trialling an electric aircraft next month as a training aircraft, and medium-sized transport aircraft are quickly following the initial surge in training aircraft. Now, your comment on public transport, sure, it's part of long-term plans, I get that, but you only have to attempt to drive across Wellington at a busy time of the day, and you know that there are multiple challenges to getting efficiently to Wellington, and public transport is extraordinarily time-consuming with multiple stops on the journey. I had the misfortune on Sunday to use public transport to get to Wellington and back from Whero Bay at the end of the day, and the train replacement buses were probably took 3 times as long as driving those routes. So I personally like to support public transport, but the practicalities of it during rush hours, that's, you know, we're years off having a 4-lane highway to the airport. Until that sort of thing happens, that fast electric buses or whatever are making that journey without having to stop on side streets and turn around in awkward places, as I experienced on Sunday. I believe we will have electric aircraft faster than that.
Thank you, Tony. Look, last question, just a quick response, if you may. You mentioned a electric aircraft coming to the club in a month or so. Would you be interested in extending an invitation to elected members?
Absolutely, we intend to do that. So as soon as we have finalised the dates, we will be inviting the council to be
Thank you, Tony.
to participate.
While flying, make sure you've got an open mind. Just saying, Councillor McCann.
Kia ora, Tony. Thank you for coming here today. I am someone who often takes the train to the airport, so I usually find that pretty convenient. But I'd like to ask you a question about the another submission. Have you had a look at Gordon Moller, from Moller Architects' submission to do exactly what you're talking about with that mixed mode?
I listened to Gordon's presentation yesterday.
Yep. And my question to him was, had he made sure that that was practically doable and that there weren't regulations that prevented the airport from being so close? Have you done the same?
So Gordon acknowledged when he was questioned on that yesterday that he didn't know about the civil aviation aspect of it. Yes, we know about the side clearances that are required from the runways for development. So we've got a very good understanding of that. We know where there could be development, particularly to the southwest of the airfield immediately, so between Alexander Road and the airfield. And I know there's been talk about wetlands being an obstacle, but there's a significant area of land that has already been rezoned as mixed use. And interestingly, we were not contacted for comment on that plan change as an airport user, but there's a significant area of notionally airport land owned by the Templeton Group now that is not fully, or is largely developable. It's not significantly wetland, and it's well away from the clear zones that are required around the runways.
So what I'm getting from you is that the Gordon Moller suggestion that there is something similar to that, but not as extensive, that meets the regulations?
Very similar to what Gordon Moller outlined in his submission. I mean, his was a sketch showing approximately what could be done. I believe that a Save Kāpiti Airport presenter later today is likely to talk more about this. Save Kāpiti Airport has done detailed work on this. They've had civil engineering consultants working on it with them. They have a detailed plan of what could be done.
Thank you. I've got one more question, is it right? I've got one question, which is, why should council have a role in keeping open perhaps our airport, but not a role in housing, which affects almost everyone in our community?
I have not said that council shouldn't have a role in housing. What I have said is that the airport should not be treated lightly as a windfall opportunity to address a real problem with housing. But we do know that there is land available in the district for housing. Suddenly someone comes along, a developer comes along, proposes to redevelop a public amenity as housing. Sure, I can see some attraction in that, but the consequences need to be considered as well.
Thank you for that answer, and I won't debate, but I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive or inclusive. Thank you.
Councillor Compton.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, just picking up on the written submission here, you said to us this morning that you support a CCO, and you're speaking on behalf of the Aero Club, but in the submission it says, no, we should not set up a CCO. So setting up another structure will not have desired impact.
That's not my submission.
It says it's from Grant Tweddle, Kāpiti Aero Club.
So as a member, so that's his personal submission. He may have labelled it Kāpiti Aero Club, but he is a member. He's a staff member of the club, but he's not empowered to write a submission representing the club. A large number of our members made submissions. I believe it could be in the order of 100 members made submissions, but there was not a club submission per se made, and Grant Twaddles is not representative of the club.
I just want some clarification as to what we're talking about today. Thank you for coming along. I think there's a little bit of confusion because we have a submission here which is from Grant Twaddle on behalf of the Kāpiti Aero Club. If that's not the submission you're speaking in support of today, maybe staff could point us to the correct submission?
So, as I've said, the club did not make a formal submission. Mr. Twaddle obviously made a submission. I have not seen it. I only know what Councillor Compton has just read out. But the club made a submission as a group of individuals making submissions. We did not make a submission as an organisation.
So what submission are you speaking in support of today?
I'm speaking in support of my own submission and in support of the club generally.
Okay, it appears we don't have the right submission in front of us.
Is the numbering of the submission correct? That's the question.
Yeah, there's a mistake somewhere.
That's my question. I was really questioning. We thought that was the submission.
Okay, yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah, I understood. I completely understand. I mean, I can't really control how a member will make a submission as an individual, and the fact that he put on behalf of Kāpiti Aero Club does not mean it is endorsed by the Kāpiti Aero Club.
To ask a question.
Look, can I ask you to remain here while we take a break?
I will do, thank you.
Yeah. Well, we take a break.
We've all assumed certainly can speak to the submission, which
Yeah,
so that's why we're
granted my submission and said it was on behalf of the club.
yeah. So I'm sure they'll try and figure it out.